Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're tackling the truly incredible story of Jaycee Dugard.
Oh, yeah.
You know the basics.
Yeah.
11-year-old abducted and found alive 18 years later.
Absolutely.
But we're going to go so much deeper than the headlines.
Right.
Really dissect what happened, how she survived, and what it all means.
Yeah, it's all right.
Our main source material here is a great episode of Crime Junkie.
Oh, yeah. We're good.
They actually had interviews with Jaci herself and with Dr. Rebecca Bailey, who was really instrumental in her healing.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to unpack all that today.
Yeah.
But just a heads up, this isn't just your typical true crime story.
Right.
We're going to challenge some assumptions about how victims are supposed to behave.
Yeah.
And really reframe how we think about trauma and survival.
I'm ready.
All right, so rewind back to June 10th, 1991.
Wow.
South Lake Tahoe, California.
Okay.
Picture an 11-year-old girl just walking to the bus stop, a normal morning,
Normal day.
and all of a sudden, this gray sedan pulls up.
Oh, gosh.
Driver asks for directions, seems pretty harmless, right?
Yeah, totally.
But then in a split second, everything changes.
Oh, no.
So Jaci's stepfather, Coral,
Okay.
he was actually there. He witnessed the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
He saw the driver use a stun gun on Jaci and force her into the car.
Oh, my gosh. Every parent's worst nightmare?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Imagine seeing that happen.
Yeah, I can't even.
So Carl immediately calls 911.
Yeah, of course.
And a huge investigation is launched right away. They had a description of the car. They had descriptions of the abductors.
Yeah.
They even featured the case on America's Most Wanted.
Wow.
But even with all that, the trail went cold.
Oh, no.
Can you imagine what her family went through for those 18 years?
Oh, the not knowing is just the worst.
Yeah, that constant wondering if she was even alive.
It's heartbreaking.
So many families of missing persons deal with that.
You're right.
It's awful limbo.
Yeah.
Then flash forward to 2009. Completely unrelated incident at UC Berkeley.
What?
This is where it gets crazy.
Okay.
2 campus police officers, Lisa Campbell and Allie Jacobs,
Mm-hmm.
they're meeting with this guy named Philip Garrido. He wants to host an event on campus.
Okay.
He's got these 2 young girls with him.
Mm-hmm.
And something just felt off to these officers.
Okay.
It wasn't anything concrete, more like just a gut feeling.
Right.
Garrido was acting kind of erratically.
Okay.
The girls seemed really withdrawn, almost rehearsed in their answers.
Ooh, that's creepy.
It's like they were trained to say certain things.
Yeah, like they were scared.
Exactly. And it's really a testament to those officers' training and experience.
Yeah.
They were able to pick up on those subtle cues, those red flags,
Right.
even without any hard evidence.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah, they were amazing, and thank goodness they did.
Why?
Because a background check
Uh-oh.
revealed that Garrido was a registered sex offender on parole for a previous kidnapping and rape. Oh my God, that's terrifying.
Chilling, right?
That's a huge red flag.
Suddenly, those seemingly insignificant details
Right.
took on a whole new level of urgency. It
Absolutely.
really shows that you got to trust your gut sometimes.
You're right.
So Garrido's parole officer arranges a meeting.
Okay.
Garrido shows up with his wife, Nancy, the 2 girls,
Mm-hmm.
and this other young woman in her 20s.
Okay.
He introduces her as Alyssa,
Alyssa.
but the stories kept changing.
How so?
Alyssa claimed to be the mother of the younger girls.
Okay.
Then Garrido's like, no, they're my brother's kids.
Oh my gosh, what a mess. It was this web of lies.
Yeah.
The officers knew they were dealing with something way more complex than they thought.
Right.
Finally, Garrido confesses to kidnapping Alyssa years ago.
Wow.
But the real breakthrough came when a female officer,
Okay.
using a more compassionate approach,
Right.
she gains Alyssa's trust.
Oh, good.
That's when Alyssa writes down her real name on a piece of paper.
What was it?
Jaycee Dugard.
Oh, my God.
After 18 years, she was finally coming home.
Wow, that gives me chills.
Can you imagine that moment?
I can't.
The relief, the disbelief, all
Yeah.
those emotions.
After all those years.
And then the reunion with her mother, Terry.
Oh, my God.
That was a moment captured on news cameras around the world.
I remember seeing that.
But behind those images was a story of just unimaginable trauma.
Right.
And this long road to healing that was ahead of her.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to dive into next.
I'm ready.
So it's hard to even fathom what Jaci went through, for those 18 years.
Yeah.
But what's so powerful is how she's willing to share her story to help us really understand what it means to survive and heal from such extreme trauma.
Right.
And in doing so, she challenges a lot of common misconceptions.
Like what?
Like the idea of Stockholm Syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
That belief that victims develop positive feelings for their captors.
Yeah. You see that a lot in movies.
Right. It's often portrayed in pop culture, but Jaci herself strongly rejects that label. She says it doesn't accurately reflect her experience at all.
Interesting.
So what's fascinating here is that Jaci's survival really hinged on a strategy called appeasement.
Appeasement.
You can think of it like this. You're constantly assessing the situation, right?
Yeah.
Reading your captor's moods, and you're adapting your behavior to avoid triggering any kind of negative reaction.
Okay, so it's not about genuine affection or Stockholm Syndrome.
It's not.
But like a way of staying safe?
Exactly. It's about creating a sense of safety in a really dangerous and unpredictable environment.
Right.
Jaci describes it as learning to think like a predator but act like prey.
Wow.
It's like this primal response.
Yeah.
It's a way of calming yourself and your captor to avoid any potential threat.
Makes sense.
And it's a remarkable testament to her strength and resilience.
It really is.
To be able to navigate that kind of complexity for 18 years while enduring repeated sexual assaults.
Oh, God.
Psychological manipulation, even being forced to give birth to 2 daughters in captivity.
Wow.
It's almost beyond comprehension.
Yeah.
But Jaci found ways to cope.
Yeah.
Find moments of normalcy in the chaos, you know?
Yeah.
She taught her daughter, she tended a garden.
Really?
She even found solace in humor, finding ways to laugh at the absurdity of her situation.
Humor.
Wow. Yeah, that's something I wouldn't have expected.
Me neither.
It really speaks to the adaptability of the human spirit.
Absolutely. And to understand this even further, we can look at polyvagal theory.
Polyvagal theory.
It explains how our nervous system responds to threat.
Oh, okay.
Think of it like a car engine.
All right.
That's got different gears for different speeds.
Okay, I'm following. So how does this relate to, like, our response to danger?
Well, imagine the fight or flight response as the highest gear.
Okay.
Your body is ready for action, right?
Right.
And there's freeze.
Okay.
Like slamming on the brakes.
Okay.
Your body goes numb, plays dead. And then there's social engagement. Lower gear, where you're trying to connect, build trust, de-escalate the situation.
So in Jaci's case, that social engagement system would have been crucial.
Right, exactly.
Survival.
It's about using subtle cues to regulate your own emotions and influence those of your captor. Creating a sense of safety, however fragile it might be, is paramount in a situation like that.
So hearing about this polyvagal theory, it makes me think, wasn't there a lot of talk about how Jaci had opportunities to escape?
Oh, yeah.
But this sheds a whole new light on that, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It challenges us to think beyond those simplistic explanations.
Right.
It wasn't about being brainwashed or Stockholm Syndrome.
Right.
It was about a highly sophisticated survival strategy rooted in our biology.
Exactly. And then there's that added layer of complexity with her daughters.
Yeah.
You know, they grew up knowing Nancy as their mother and Jaci as their older sister.
Oh, my God.
What a tangled web of relationships.
It really is. It raises so many questions about how these children will process their own identities and the truth about their past.
Right. And it really underscores that long-lasting impact of trauma.
Absolutely.
How it ripples outward, affecting multiple generations.
Yeah, it's not just the individual.
It's a lot to unpack.
It is.
And I can only imagine how difficult it was for Jaci to re-enter the world after 18 years.
Oh, yeah.
Dealing with the media, navigating relationships, the constant process of healing.
So much to deal with.
And this is where Dr. Bailey's approach to therapy really comes in.
Oh, tell me about that.
It wasn't about forcing Jaci to relive her trauma, but rather about creating this safe and supportive environment where she could reconnect with herself and rediscover joy.
I love that.
So they did things like horseback riding, cooking together, spending time in nature.
That sounds nice.
It sounds more like building a life than traditional therapy.
It really does, and that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
Healing through connection, both with other people and with the natural world.
Yeah.
Dr. Bailey recognized that traditional therapy models weren't enough.
Right.
Jaci needed something more experiential.
Okay.
More focused on re-regulating her nervous system and building trust.
It makes you wonder, are there lessons here that could apply to other types of trauma?
Probably.
Not just these extreme cases like Jaci's.
Yeah.
But maybe everyday challenges that people face?
Oh, for sure. I think so.
Absolutely. So Jaci's story highlights the power of connection, the importance of creating safe spaces for healing, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit.
It really does.
So we've talked about the trauma, the survival, the healing, but there's another aspect of the story that I think we need to address.
What's that?
The systemic failures that allowed Jaci's captivity to go on for so long.
Right.
It's a difficult conversation, but it's necessary.
Absolutely.
We need to understand how a registered sex offender already on parole for kidnapping and rape was able to keep Jaci and her daughters captive for 18 years while under supervision.
It's unbelievable.
Parole officers visited the Garrido home 60 times over those years. Neighbors reported suspicious activity.
Oh, my God.
And yet, nothing was done.
That's awful.
It's a stark reminder that even with systems in place, human error and complacency can have devastating consequences.
You're right.
And what's even more disturbing is that after Jaci's rescue, the parole board actually commended themselves for a job well done.
No way. Are you serious?
It's mind-boggling.
How could they?
How could they ignore their own failures so blatantly?
Yeah.
It's just incredibly frustrating, to say the least.
I bet.
But amidst the anger and frustration, there's also this powerful story of hope emerging from this tragedy.
Tell me about it.
Jaci refused to be defined by her past.
Wow.
She co-founded the Jaycee Foundation.
Oh, wow.
Dedicated to helping other survivors of extreme trauma.
That's amazing.
And it's not just about providing therapy.
Right.
It's about changing the way we think about trauma. Advocating for more effective law enforcement training.
Yeah.
And promoting a more compassionate and understanding society.
That's so important.
Exactly. Jaci and Dr. Bailey are working to prevent future tragedies by sharing their insights with law enforcement officers who work with sex offenders.
That's amazing.
It's so important to learn from these failures and use that knowledge to protect others.
Absolutely.
It's really incredible to see her taking such an active role in helping others.
It is.
The Jaycee Foundation is doing some really innovative work.
I've heard that. What kind of stuff?
Well, one of the things that really stood out to me was their focus on creating this healing environment that goes beyond, like, traditional therapy, you know?
Right, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
They use things like horseback riding and art therapy and just being in nature.
Exactly.
Not just talking about it, right?
It's about experiencing and connecting and, like, re-regulating your nervous system. And they even have a program specifically for law enforcement officers.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
What do they do?
So they use horses and team building exercises.
Interesting.
To help officers better understand, you know, the dynamics of trauma and how to approach situations with more empathy.
That's so important, especially given, you know, what we learned about the missed opportunities in Jesse's case.
Absolutely. Wow.
By training law enforcement to recognize the signs of abuse and respond with trauma-informed practices.
Right.
Hopefully we can create a more effective safety net for survivors.
For sure. It's like they're trying to fix the system from the inside out.
Exactly. And beyond, you know, those practical aspects, Jaci and Dr. Bailey also emphasized the importance of humor in the healing process.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's something that really struck me too. You wouldn't necessarily think of humor as a tool for coping with trauma.
Right.
But they talk about how laughter can be this powerful way to find light in the darkness.
I love it, yeah. It's about reclaiming your agency, refusing to let the trauma define you.
It's so true.
So what does all this mean for you, our listener?
Yeah.
I mean, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We explored Jaci's harrowing journey of survival, delved into the complexities of trauma and healing, uncovered those systemic failures that allowed her captivity to continue for so long.
Right. It's a lot.
But most importantly, I think Jaci's story really challenges us to rethink our assumptions about trauma.
Totally.
To listen to the voices of survivors and to advocate for a more compassionate world.
Absolutely.
You know, her story isn't just about her personal experience.
Right.
It's a story that has the power to change the way we think about trauma and healing on, like, a societal level.
It really does.
If you're interested in learning more about Jaci's story, her foundation or polyvagal theory, we encourage you to check out the resources in our show notes.
Yeah, good idea.
And remember, healing isn't a linear process.
Right.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Everyone's different.
It's about finding what works for you, creating that supportive environment, and embracing the journey even with all its complexities.
I like that.
Jaycee's story is this powerful reminder that even in the face of unimaginable adversity, the human spirit can prevail.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's a story of resilience, hope, and the transformative power of connection.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new and are leaving with a renewed sense of empathy and understanding.
Thanks for listening, everyone.